What is going on, everybody? James Hancock here. I'm back to review the new comedy Fackham Hall, or as it sounds when you say it very quickly, fuck 'em all. As the old expression goes, fuck 'em one, fuck 'em all. In any event, I had the good fortune of being invited to the New York premiere Tuesday night, and I'm happy to report the movie's delightful. I was either giggling or outright cracking up pretty much from start to finish, and the pitch for the movie is very simple. What if the show Downton Abbey and the movie Gosford Park got drunk and enjoyed a nice roll in the hay, and the offspring would probably resemble something close to Fackham Hall? But much to my happy surprise, at the end of the movie I realized that several members of the writing and producing team were seated right in front of me, so I quickly offered them my very hasty congratulations, but I'm kind of relieved that I did not know that they were there prior to the movie. Otherwise, I might have done something as pathetic as indulging in performative laughter. And there's nothing more artificial and more inauthentic than when somebody's trying to fake their laughter. And in case you're wondering, yes, I am that pathetic where I would try to seek their approval that way. But in all seriousness, I can't imagine how satisfying it must be after you've put like your blood, sweat, and tears into a movie for several years, and you're surrounded by your friends and family members, but also members of the press and fellow filmmakers and that sort of thing, and just hearing a room full of laughter. You were like, because like when you're making a movie, who knows if it's going to work, if it's going to pay off, or if the laughs are going to land. But when you finally hear like the belly rolls of laughter, and like not only was there laughter at the movie, there were some people in the crowd that were laughing so hard, people around them would start laughing at them because laughter is incredibly contagious. So my advice is going to be for everybody to find your friends, your family members, maybe have a glass of champagne beforehand, and try to see this movie in a packed theater, because it opens in the US this weekend, and for some reason it's opening a week later in the UK. But throughout this year, we've been seeing some very clear signs that the universe is trying to heal. The comedy is trying to stage a comeback. And admittedly, there's not yet been that comedy that comes along where it's like it's abundantly clear that the comedy's back. But Naked Gun came earlier this summer, or I should say the Naked Gun reboot. And the Naked Gun reboot has a similar style of like spoof comedy to Fackham Hall, but I think Fackham Hall is superior. It's my favorite comedy of the year by far. And admittedly, in 2025, saying something's your favorite comedy of the year, it's not saying much. However, I'm dying for the comedy to come back, and I need to be careful not to oversell the movie, because obviously I'm admitting my bias. I'm rooting for comedies to make their triumphant return. I don't know if Fackham Hall will get us all the way there, but it'll definitely be in my top 10 movies of the year. I had a thoroughly good time, and I can't wait to watch it again with friends, family members, etc. But if you've not yet seen the very, very funny Red Band trailer for the movie, here is the official premise. A new porter forms an odd bond with the youngest daughter of a well-known UK family as the Davenport family, headed by Lord and Lady Davenport, deals with the epic disaster of the wedding of their eldest daughter to her caddish cousin. And yes, you heard me correctly. Marrying one's cousin within the Davenport family is not only discouraged, if anything, it's encouraged, because as they say in the movie, and this will be my only spoiler that I offer during my review, but the two of them say, oh, we have so much in common, like our grandparents. Like, when I heard that, I just started howling with laughter. I was like, you know what? I have a feeling this comedy's going to be right up my alley. But I should also add that this movie's set in 1931 during the peak of the Great Depression, because class disparity is a key part of this movie, where you're constantly comparing the working class as well as the upper crust. And the movie's also still reeling from the after effects of World War I, where untold millions just marched right into machine guns during the horrors of trench warfare. But not to worry, this movie, not only is it a comedy, it remembers to stay a comedy from start to finish. There's so many horrible examples throughout film history where comedies kind of forget their true purpose, and around the 2/3 mark start taking themselves way too seriously. And obviously there are plenty of comedies out there where they can kind of thread that needle between drama and comedy, and they can make it all work. But if you're making a spoof comedy, a comedy in the spirit of Airplane, a comedy in the spirit of The Naked Gun, or Scary Movie, or Hot Shots, or Top Secret, any of those movies that are designed to be as ridiculously seemingly possible, while at the same time maintaining a very straight face. Like the key to a great spoof is you have to deliver it straight, or the comedy doesn't work. But with any great spoof comedy, it has to stay funny from start to finish. Otherwise, that magical chemistry of comedy would just fail to ignite. And obviously, when you're discussing comedy, there's nothing less funny than trying to break down too aggressively what makes the comedy work. But if I had to try to put my finger on what makes Fackham Hall work, it's not highbrow comedy. I feel like a highbrow comedy set in the English countryside, like the best possible example would be the play The Importance of Being Earnest by Oscar Wilde, frequently cited as the funniest play in the English language. And I think that was written like in 1890 something or other, but you see it today, performed anywhere on the stage, it'll still make you laugh your ass off. And that is like, like the peak of wit and sophistication and divine comedy. But Fackham Hall, I wouldn't say it's highbrow comedy. I would say it's refreshingly midbrow comedy, where you've got the class and sophistication and the attention to detail and just the veneer of quality, but you also have plenty of jokes about boners and farts and shit and puke and all that stuff. So there's plenty of lowbrow comedy in the mix.
What is that you're reading?
It's a tale of forbidden love.
Oh boy!
Who knows, if Oscar Wilde were alive today and he had a chance to write The Importance of Being Earnest Part 2, maybe he would insert a lot of boner jokes and shit jokes and fart jokes and all that good stuff. But he is not alive. But luckily, the filmmakers of Fackham Hall are, and their names are, the director's Jim O'Hanlon, and the writers are Jimmy Carr, Patrick Carr, and Andrew Dawson. And I'm well aware of the fact that Jimmy Carr has had this huge career in the UK, and he's also a very funny performer in the movie. He plays the priest or the preacher. I don't quite know what the proper terminology is, but he's in the movie.
God is there shining a light, and today he's shining a light for these two our souls. And today he's shining a light for these two. Our souls are eternally in his debt. Amen.
And quick interruption, I'm seeing here in IMDb that Jimmy Carr plays the vicar. So not a priest, not a preacher. He is the vicar. But this is an incredible comedy team, and I hope that they'll reunite to make some more movies. And Jim O'Hanlon, he did a, not a long introduction, but a very entertaining introduction to the movie ahead of time, where he introduced some of the actresses from the film, as well as some of his key collaborators. And you can tell just his energy and his flair for comedy, it's infectious. Like, just from his delivery style, talking about the cast and crew and how he was willing to steal ideas, but if the movie's a flop, he will give those ideas right back. But if the movie's a hit, he'll say they were his ideas all along. But I feel like on any movie, because it's such a pain in the ass to make a movie under any circumstances, if you have a really strong personality leading the charge with that infectious enthusiasm, it can trickle down to the whole cast and crew and set the tone. Like, we're sailing this way. This is the style and tone of the movie. This is the style and tone of the comedy. And I would say it's remarkably consistent throughout. My only real criticisms of the movie would be, and this might be a very, 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 very minor spoiler, but in the hunting scene, they have all these guys walking around with double-barrel shotguns. But when they have these mishaps out in the field where they keep shooting each other, but they're like these bullets or slugs that they're pulling out of their flasks, or whatever the case might be. Shotguns do not fire bullets; they fire shotgun shells, and inside of a shotgun shell are like a million little BBs that basically send a spread of whatever you're trying to knock down a bird out of the sky with. That's how you hunt with a shotgun. But in any case, we will forgive that minor flaw. But I would say the one major flaw of this movie, or not major, the one flaw, around the 2/3 mark, it doesn't start taking itself seriously, but the comedy just kind of sags a bit, and it rebounds big time toward the ending. I would say that the ending of the movie, it sends you off, doing cartwheels, big smile on your face. Yeah, I absolutely love the ending, and it's not like a cheesy, unearned, kind of syrupy, overly saccharine or cloying ending. The jokes are sustained throughout, but just I would not say this movie is a pitch perfect home run from start to finish, the way you would describe a movie like Airplane or Naked Gun. But you don't need to be the best comedy ever to be a good comedy. I've seen hundreds, if not thousands, of comedies that are not the best comedy ever, but I still laugh uproariously from start to finish. In any case, I would love to see this filmmaking team reunite to make some more comedies. But obviously, when it comes to making comedies, no matter how brilliant your screenplay might be, no matter how good a director your director might be, you need a funny cast to bring it to the screen. And there are a lot of actors in this movie that I was not aware that they are hilarious until I saw this movie. But Damian Lewis, I saw him in Band of Brothers, and wasn't he in that was it Homelander or Homeland? What was that thriller he did with Claire Danes? In any case, I think of Damian Lewis as being this very grave, serious, heartfelt, sincere actor. As Lord Davenport, he might be my favorite character in the movie. I was screaming with laughter during certain scenes because he is just the ultimate unto the manner born aristocrat, where even if he's just having a glass of tea, there's a servant putting his arm underneath his arm and doing it for him. But all he wants to do is hunt and drink and eat and marry off his children for the rest of his days.
After so many years of courting, she's finally found the right cousin.
And Catherine Waterston is Lady Davenport. She enjoys this incredible chemistry with him. And to my knowledge, Catherine Waterston, her natural real-life accent is an American accent. I might be mistaken on that, but I believe she has an American accent. She might be the first American ever to do a convincing English accent in a movie about the English aristocracy. And it helps that she's playing a role that's kind of a little over the top or a little bit extreme in her mannerisms, so she can lean into her dialect in a really specific kind of funny way. But yeah, I thought she was absolutely hilarious as well.
Murder.
The real stars of this movie, and the reason the movie works, is due to Thomasin McKenzie and Ben Radcliffe, who play Rose Davenport and Eric No One, because their love story is kind of the spine of the movie, or the main through line of the movie, amidst weddings that are ending in disaster and murder mysteries and all this stuff. It's really the relationship between Rose and Eric that keeps you invested. And what makes it even more interesting is that Rose is basically a princess and lives in the lap of luxury, whereas the character of Eric, he's kind of a con artist. He's a man who lives on his wits, and he's a pickpocket and all that sort of things. So you have like the high class and the low class coming together, falling in love.
Tell me your dreams.
Well, I have this dream where my penis falls off, but I can't go to the doctor because I'm late for school.
Same.
Well, what I found so refreshing about the relationship is that it's not one of your typical kind of emotionally manipulative, sugary sweet relationships that you see in so many horrendous romantic comedies. I mean, I grew up in the 80s and 90s where we were drowning in horrendous romantic comedies that is avoided like the plague. This relationship remains just delightfully kind of silly and ridiculous from start to finish. And this is not a spoiler because this comes straight from the trailer, but one night they're at a pub, and Rose asks him, tell me about your dreams. He says, I have this dream where my penis fell off, but I can't go to the doctor because I'm late for school. And she's like, same. I mean, it's that kind of comedy from start to finish. And there are going to be some people, when they see that, or they hear those kinds of jokes, they're going to be totally stone-faced, like, this isn't funny at all. Like, all of you are morons, and I'm doubting your intelligence for laughing at this kind of silly shit. But if this kind of comedy is right up your alley, well, then you're going to have a blast with this movie. And one of the keys to a great comedy is having a very deep bench of really good comedic actors. Like, you can't just have a comedy where just Jim Carrey or just Adam Sandler or someone along those lines shows up and gets to do all the funny bits while everybody else is playing it straight. And this is something that Preston Sturges knew in his bones back in the 1940s when he was making all of his great comedies. But don't be afraid to give away your funniest lines to some of the smallest roles in the movie. This whole cast is getting in on the fun. Like Tom Felton, Draco Malfoy himself, he plays Archibald. He's pretty goddamn good. Tom Goodman Hill as Inspector Watt.
I'm here regarding the murder of Lord Davenport. I'm afraid you're too late. Someone's already done it.
I feel like a comedy or any movie can kind of exhaust its appeal pretty quickly. And what you need is to kind of change things up in terms of the story and the cast around the halfway mark. When he shows up, the movie finds a new gear that's very reminiscent of Gosford Park. But he comes along right at the time where you kind of need a fresh face to get engaged in. Lee Boardman is funny as Carl. The last thing I saw him was Rome like 20 years ago, but he's fantastic. Charlie Rawls is Big Alan. Dude, he's a rough old boy, but he's fantastic in it as well.
Oh, well, he made it to 7. To London's oldest ever chimney sweep.
The real show stealer is Jimmy Carr himself, and obviously when you have written the screenplay, you know precisely the way you want that comedy delivered. And as you see in the trailer, he's a vicar who he never quite knows where to stop his sentences, and so sentences that should be innocent and sweet end up turning into something totally depraved and disgusting. And he somehow just, like, the jokes never get old. He does it over and over and over again throughout the movie, but in small doses. He was fantastic, and I'm definitely going to go back and raid the back bins of Jimmy Carr's earlier work, because when I looked him up on IMDb, he just had a list of credits as long as your arm. I believe this is my first encounter with the great Jimmy Carr, but I like what I've seen, and I plan on watching a hell of a lot more. But just as important as some of the cast and crew who brought this movie to the screen, we also need to give a shout out to some of the people who made this movie possible, like Bleecker Street. I reached out to Bleecker Street and just asked if there were going to be any press screenings for this movie or any press screeners made available, and they were kind enough to invite me to the New York premiere. So shout out to Bleecker Street. I had a fine time, posing at the little photo booth zone, and anyway, it was a cool event. They had it down at the Metrograph here in New York, and I've seen a lot of old movies at the Metrograph, movies like Double Indemnity or The Man from Hong Kong. But if you're looking for a venue in New York where you can have a screening as well as a cocktail party afterwards, they have a bar and a kind of lounge upstairs and down. It's the perfect spot if you want a movie screening that also turns into a party after the fact. And the cast and crew for this movie, they were definitely partying their faces off after the movie. But I should also give a shout out to the company called Legion M, which helped fund the movie. And I just learned about them last night, but it's not crowdfunding. It's more like crowd investing, if that makes any sense, where they allow you to get invested in some of their upcoming productions. And I've seen some similar organizations like the Horror Section by Eli Roth, where basically you're allowed to kind of buy a piece of whatever movies they are making. But I'm going to be doing the deep dive on Legion M. If this is the kind of movie they're associated with, I definitely want to send some of my hard-earned dollars their way. But getting back to the movie itself and this style of comedy, what I like about this comedy is that on the surface, the entire movie is designed to work as one self-contained story. But there are little jokes here and there, or little details here and there, where if you have knowledge of that topic, well, then you'll have a deeper appreciation, which is going to reward multiple viewings. Like if you've seen Gosford Park, you will enjoy this more, but it's not required. Or if you've seen Downton Abbey, I've seen the first 2 seasons, you will enjoy this more, but it's not required. And my next, compliment is very spoiler light, but it will help people enjoy the movie more if they know in advance to kind of have some knowledge about this. But all I'll say is, and once again, if you want to bail out with no spoilers, by all means, bail out now. But if you know what the Bechdel test is, there's one joke that's really inside, and I'd seen a previous video by another content creator where I was like, what is the Bechdel test? And I'd heard of it, but it was familiar, but there's a great gag, but that's a really inside, like if 1% of the audience gets the joke in the movie, then I'll be impressed. But for that 1%, they will laugh hard. Or if you're a fan of the great J.R.R. Tolkien, and I certainly am, as you can tell over my shoulder where I've got all my Tolkien stuff on display, I'm not going to spoil any of the jokes, but let's just say that either he or his works are prominently featured in this movie in ways that I was just... it's very rare that you can combine like laughs with geekdom, or it's very hard to do because I feel like the nerdy impulse, whether it's for fantasy, sci-fi, or whatever, and the comedic impulse to ridicule things, sometimes they're mutually incompatible. Because like if you love Tolkien, it's like it's sacred and it's so sincere and it's so heartfelt. But this movie manages to tread that line where they have where they're able to offer a few jokes that I won't say at its expense, but that at least include J.R.R. Tolkien. But in the end, any great comedy that takes place in the English countryside is going to include a few key ingredients. Hunting, we have hunting jokes. Booze, plenty of booze jokes. Infidelities and screwing around, and as I mentioned before, plenty of barf and farts and shit and piss and all that good depraved humor that we all love so well. Those are all the the vitamins that a growing boy needs. So overall, I mean, I hate giving letter grades or like number grades to a movie. I'll just say I was very entertained. Is it one of my all-time favorite comedies? No. But it's one of those comedies where I will definitely watch it again, and I'll watch it again just to force other people to watch it, especially if they have a little bit of Anglophilia. I mean, we all know, I have relatives where they'll watch anything with an English accent. But I feel like Fackham Hall, the appeal transcends just the English accents. Although there are a few jokes in here about Americans as well that I really appreciated. I won't go into details. So, yes, once again, reviewing comedies is just a tricky thing. Apart from just saying I laughed. And I hope you'll laugh too. So it's opening in America this weekend. I hope it does well. The trailers did insanely well online. I feel like there's a lot of pent-up demand for great comedies. And I hoped and I prayed that Naked Gun this past summer was going to be that movie. And I laughed hard watching Naked Gun. It wasn't quite good enough to be one of those movies that can really pack them in, because I can remember in the 80s and 90s, certain movies like There's Something About Mary, where it would be a packed theater where just like the floor would shake with laughter, and that movie went on to make hundreds of millions of dollars. And I'm just, I feel like the movie marketplace is incomplete in the absence of great big blockbuster comedies. Like we've got musicals and science fiction and superheroes and all kinds of different movies. But the one big ingredient that's missing from the contemporary movie marketplace is fantastic comedies, hit comedies, not niche comedies. But it's funny, back in the 80s and 90s, there were so many comedies being made. You could afford to be a bit of like a dilettante, like, oh, I like these kinds of comedies, but not these kinds of comedies. Like, if you were a fan of like Adam Sandler and Chris Rock and Eddie Murphy and Chris Farley and all those kinds of guys, well, then maybe you weren't going to be as into like the Christopher Guest comedies, like Waiting for Guffman, which were more improvisational and that sort of thing. But like, it's funny. We were so spoiled rotten by such a wealth of different options. Some people are like, well, I only want to watch movies like The Big Lebowski, like kind of these absurdist magical realism movies. And then other people say, oh, I only want to watch comedy specials like Richard Pryor Live on the Sunset Strip and things like that. But now it's just like we have none, or those that we get don't quite stick the landing, like Friendship from A24. I was really rooting hard for it. It didn't quite get there. Or Naked Gun, it didn't quite become the hit that I was hoping it would be. Fackham Hall, just for the sake of my own sanity and the health and prosperity of the movie industry, I'm hoping this movie will do well, because if it does well, that'll encourage more people to make more comedies of a similar nature. So check it out. It's R-rated. It's 97 minutes long. You're in, you're out, and then take your friends and family and go again. But those are my thoughts on Fackham Hall, and I hope I didn't spoil it too much, and I hope I didn't oversell it too much. Obviously, I have a very clear-cut agenda, and my agenda is twofold. First and foremost, I'm thankful to Bleecker for inviting me to a premiere, and it's very easy to fall under the spell of a movie when you're surrounded by cast and crew and wanting to have a good time and wanting the movie to be a good experience. And obviously, the other part of my agenda is that I'm rooting for comedies to make a comeback, and so I do tend to overpraise a comedy that's good. However, if I hadn't laughed, I would be the first to tell you, because I feel like if you tell people it's funny and it's not, your reputation is mud. Like my siblings, as well as my friends from college, if you say a movie will deliver the goods and will actually make them laugh, and it doesn't, well then they're not going to trust you on any movies ever again. So fuck them all, fuck them one, fuck them all. It will make you laugh. But this is one of those comedies where as soon as I'm finished with this review, I will be sending the trailer to my siblings, to my old friends, and telling them this is one of those rare comedies that does manage to deliver an absolute cultural unicorn in 2025. So let me know what you think down in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. But I hope everybody has a very good time at the movies this weekend. But more importantly, as always, onwards and upwards.